Yo guys, Augiesaint here and welcome to the channel. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and I want to talk to you guys a bit about all the supports we currently have in game, how to build them, and in what team comps to go ahead and use them. Now currently, in my opinion, the best support in game that you should pretty much use with anybody is Truffle and Filbert. Her damage buff is just insane, and then depending on how you build her, she can also do some insane healing, but I mainly just build her for the damage buff. I have a little bit built into the heals, so we do get some decent heals from her now and then, but mainly we're just using her for the damage buff. So pretty much just always have the buff up from her. The reason why it's so good is it's a straight up damage boost buff. A lot of the other supports don't really give that. They give like attack up, or they'll give skill damage up, or healing, or crit chance, something like that. But there's not many places in the game you can just get straight up damage boost buff. So that's a lot stronger than the race because it just gives you damage on top of all of your other modifiers. So it's really strong, and that's why I can say Truffle and Filbert for me is the strongest support in game right now. So without further ado, let's hop into how we actually build all these supports. So first up, we have Truffle and Filbert, and as you can see, we are building for duration there. We have 236%, and the range being at 40% doesn't matter because the way her buffs work is they don't actually need range, whereas with like somebody like Daphne, for example, you do need range, so you don't want to build into negative range on her. So if we can have a look at Truffle and Filbert's mods, we are just running Prime Serenity. Now with Prime Serenity, you want to make sure, depending on which two supports you run, one of those supports has to have Serenity on them, and then your other support should have Prime Uplift on them. And since I pretty much use Filbert as my main support across all my team comps, I just leave my Serenity on her because I know I'll be running her plus another other support. So pretty much all my other supports I have Prime Uplift on. But if you are not using Truffle and Filbert for whatever reason on a different comp, make sure you do have Serenity on one support, and make sure you do have Uplift on the other support. Uplift is just going to give you a nice 11% increased damage dealt, and then Serenity is just going to increase your sanity regen up to 10 sanity per 3 seconds for all your teammates. And then we are using this Eternity's Abnegation. This one has a skill duration of plus 40. It does have the negative skill range, so you have to watch out for using this on characters like Daphne, for example. We actually need a little bit of range on her because her heal and her buffs do go off of range. With Truffle, you don't really care about the range, so picking up that massive 40% increased duration is really good over there. See, our duration is almost at 240%. And then we just have a bunch of Wings Eternity. It's going to give you max sanity and skill duration. Unfortunately, only a Nemo characters can get this, because if all the other supports could get this, I would literally just smack Wings Eternity on pretty much everybody. Such a good mod for supports, increasing their sanity and duration. You can see her sanity is pretty high at 264 because the AI is kind of stupid sometimes and likes to just go ahead and spam their abilities, so they kind of run out of sanity really fast. So that's why having as much sanity, or even just like building into a little bit of efficiency, will be really good, because the supports are a little bit stupid sometimes and they like to go ahead and spam their skills. And then lastly, I just smacked in the Blaze because I don't have enough space to fit anymore, but I would probably just go put another Wings Eternity in the slot if I had the tolerance cap. But for now, Blaze is actually pretty good on Truffle because Blaze increases the amount that she heals. The heal is kind of weird because it stacks off of the HP, but it also stacks off of the attacks. So if you want to build her for like crazy amounts of healing, especially when you are playing something like Psyche, you can just change a couple of these Wings Eternities for the increase in attack. Attack up, if you build her with like crazy amounts of attack, she will just start healing like crazy, but I prefer to just build her like a little bit of a balance of, yeah, maybe we could remove one more Wings Eternity for a little bit of attack. But the way I have her set up is the way I like to play. And then her Introns, the only really massive Intron you want to be getting for her is Intron level 2. When using a skill, applies an attack boost equivalent to 3% of Truffle's max HP to her teammates for 10 seconds, with a maximum boost of up to 300. However, when you do get this Intron level, you do need to get a little bit more HP if you are trying to max this buff out. I think she needs 10k HP to max this buff out. And currently, if we have a look at her, she's sitting at like 4.5. She also gets a little bit increase when you spawn her because of the skill level ups, giving her like HP increase. You see these passive over here. I don't think that actually counts on the screen over there. So when you spawn her out, she should have like 5 or 6k. And then there's actually a melee weapon, the Undying on Neros, which gives you max HP. So if you are going to be building around that, make sure you pick up this weapon on her if you're trying to max out. That's only once you get her to Intron 2, which you might not have right away. But when you do get it to Intron 2, make sure you get your HP up as high as possible to get as much as you can out of that buff. But that buff is really good as well. We've had some people test it and it was like 40% increase over what she normally does. So if you're trying to get her buff as juicy as possible, definitely get her to Intron 2. And then for her skills, the only thing you really care about is this top one right here, the Trot Trot. Because you have a look over there, the damage boost, it is right on this skill. Damage boost 82% for 14.16 seconds. But we do also use a weapon that gives us duration. So that caps out around 15 point something seconds when we actually have that weapon equipped. And then talking about that, the weapon we're going to be using with her is going to be the Arclight Apocalypse, because it gives you skill duration. Plus also when you land a crit hit with this weapon, it randomly grants other allies one of the following for 16 seconds: attack up, defense, skill damage, or skill duration. And the way that this weapon shoots, it actually shoots out like 5 arrows. So when she shoots this and we have a high crit chance on her, she's pretty much just going to give those buffs to all the teammates all the time, because you'll be shooting that quite a bit. And we also have the max ammo there at 585, so that she's not going to run out as ammo so fast. Having looked at Demon Wages, yeah, we pretty much just try to boost up the crit chance as much as possible. There's crit chance there, crit chance over there. This is the maximum ammo with negative reload speed. Doesn't matter because bows don't reload. We do have smash up there just for the mag capacity. Actually, we're using that one. And this one again is maximum ammo. And then decline over there, I'm just using that because we have space. When you're dealing a crit damage, there's a 100% chance to disarm the target. But then apparently there is a different quiver mod where it gives you the max ammo 200% and reduces the attack speed by 60. That one would be better because then she would attack slower and she wouldn't, burn through the ammo as quickly. So definitely try and look out for that one with the max ammo 200 and the negative attack speed. That will be much better. So now let's move over to the MC. First of all, have a look at the skills. The main important one is going to be the one right in the middle of here. The buff, you can see that gives you a weapon damage boost of 43% at 22 seconds. Ours is not maxed out yet, but that is the main one. And then also you do have some passives down here. Grants trigger probability increase to self and allies. So that's pretty massive over there. And then the second passive is increased weapon damage for self and allies. This is just like flat all the time. So 8%. And then we do have the 43% over there. So we're at like 51% at level 8. I think it should be probably at like 60% once you get that to level 10. You don't have to level up the other abilities. So just level up the buff over there. And then this, you either have to level to level 3 or 4 to actually unlock both passives. But that's all the skills you need on her. She's a Lumino character, so they don't really have many good support mods. As you can see, we're pretty much just using all the basic ones. Wings, Inspo, Max Sanity, Efficiency. Eternity is skill duration. Inspo for some more skill efficiency, and then Uplift, either Uplift or Serenity, like I showed you guys before on all the supports. And then we are using this one over here, Gleam and Glimmer, mainly just because it gives a little bit of skill duration. This one is not all that great on the second line. It's more for like a damage orientated build. Increases your Lumina character's attack by their current skill duration times 48% up to 117%. It does give us a little bit of Lumina attack and skill damage and everything, but we're mainly just using it for the skill duration, because there's just no other options. We can't like infinitely stack eternities. Unfortunately, if we could just go ahead and do that. We do have wings over there for some sanity. And we also do have the abnegation one there, which is the massive duration and the negative range. Her buff doesn't go off range again, so you can use this on her. Got it up to a decent duration over there of 190%. We've got a decent skill efficiency. We also have a little bit of skill damage for whenever she goes around and does some skills. And then having a look at her introns, obviously we can't get any more introns by farming. We just have to get it when the story unlocks. Her intron 6 actually gives 54% crit, so she does give a nice amount of crit to everybody. Incandescence is the buff that she gives to everybody for the weapon damage. So eventually when we get her to intron 6, she's going to gain a massive 54% crit chance. However, it's probably not going to be 54% flat crit chance, but it's still going to be free crit chance included on top of all the other buffs she is giving you. And then for weapons that we use on her, we mainly just give our other supports like skill duration. We always give our main support the bow, like I showed you guys in the Truffle with the same build. This is what we give to like our main support, and then our off support, we usually just give them anything that has skill duration, and the demon wages on this doesn't matter at all because we're literally just giving it to them for the skill duration buff. And then next up on the list is Tabethe. Now she's really good with Hydra characters as well as skill damage boosting characters because she does give a decent amount of skill damage. Go look at her skills over there. The first skill over here is the main one you want to get leveled up. You have a look there, you get a skill damage boost of 36% for 13.2 seconds. That should be close to around 15 when she actually has a skill duration weapon on her. And you don't have to buff up these two passives there, just if you want to use her as like a DPS character, you can. The main thing is just to level up the Tabethe specialty. And then the other thing you need for the skills is to get this passive down below. I think you need to get this to level 3 or 4 to actually go ahead and unlock this. This just increases skill damage for self and allies. That's always active. You have a look there. That is a nice little 8% boost. Plus the technical there is 36. So we're looking at like 44% increased skill damage boost at a level 6 buff. Obviously, that's going to go up when you level this buff up some more. The other things don't really matter at all. So just level that up and then grab this passive down below. And then having a look at her demon wages. Again, Serenity or Prime Uplift. That's a given on them. And for her, we don't really care about the range either. This will affect her tentacles and like how far they can reach, but we really don't care about anything besides the duration of the buff she's giving. So it doesn't matter if she goes and grabs stuff. She doesn't have to grab stuff in her tentacles to give you the buff. She just has to use the ability and then you get the buff. So the range negative over there doesn't matter. Just the duration is all we care about. Eternity again for some more duration. Wings for some more sanity, so she can go ahead and spam her skills. Wings inspo, again sanity and efficiency. Another wings over there for more sanity. And we do have Blaze just because it's all we could fit on what we had space for, just for a little bit of increased attack. Now something I did actually want to play around with her, and I'm going to test that a little bit later, I just haven't got around to it, is using Bahamut's Frosty Torrent. This gives her 30% skill damage, but it has a cool effect down below When a Hydro character uses a skill, the user and nearby allies gain an attack increase equal to 11.4% of the user's attack, up to 275. So this could give her quite a nice amount of increased attack there. However, for this one, you'll have to actually build into a little bit of attack, so you could get up to that number. I haven't actually done the testing on this to see how much attack you need to actually build on her to get that full stack of 275 boost. But it's definitely something we'll try out in the future, because then she can give you skill damage boost as well as just flat attack damage boost on top of everything. However, we would probably lose a little bit of duration and like sanity and efficiency and things, but definitely something to keep an eye on that you can go try out later to see if you can actually get that to boost. Then we can have her giving an increase in flat attack buff, which is pretty much almost equivalent to Truffle's I2. It was like up to 300 and this one is 275. So really close there on the buff. Definitely want to go try that out at some point. And then for weapons, again, we'll just give her anything that has skill duration if she's not the main support. Like I said before, main support will always be using the Arclight Apocalypse. And then we come over to Margie, the easiest support and probably the one you'll be using a lot early on stages because you get her pretty early, and her buff doesn't actually go on duration, so you don't even have to worry about building her. If you come have a look at skills, the only thing you need to unlock is this right here. You need to get it to level 3 so you can get the 2 passives. Grants attack increase to other allies 45%, and then another one over there is 40%, and again increases attack for self and allies. There's no restriction on it. It's not pyro attack, hydro attack, just flat up attack increase, attack boost and attack boost. So she's definitely the easiest support to use, but she only gives you really 85% increased attack. That could be like a really juicy blaze mod or a scorch mod for that matter. So she's nice to use early on. She does also have a stun on this ability. Does have a 2-second stun, however it's not affected by duration. So I was going to think of like building around that to increase the stun, but it doesn't actually increase the stun. It's flat at 2 seconds. However, it is nice. And she does actually do quite a bit of damage once you fully max her out. Her introns are also all damage orientated, so you don't have to worry about that. So she's probably one of the weakest supports, but the easiest support to like use straight away until you have some of the other supports. Demon Wedges doesn't really matter what you use on her as long as you have either Serenity or Uplift. Then we just put some damage mods on her for the increase in damage because she doesn't gain anything from duration for her buff. So just gave her a little bit of damage so she can go around and bonk some things while you have her in the party. And then for weapon on her, you can use whatever you want again because she doesn't care about duration. And then lastly, we're going to talk about Daphne. Now having a look at her skills, she has some pretty complicated skills. The first one of your Emerald Fusion is going to be healing everybody, and it is an aura around her. That's why you care about the range. You see it has an effect radius of 7.8 meters. We do also have a little bit of range built onto her. So the range of this is really small, and what it does is it gives you HP recovery per second, I believe if you're standing within it. Duration of 24 seconds. So that's going to be a nice little bit of passive healing she does there, but then her main healing buff is going to be from this one called Buff. You can see this one does quite a bit more healing, and then she also has this buff of here, 16.2%. But with this buff, I believe it's only a Nemo buff. So the main team you'll be using Daphne on is with your Psyche, because she'll be giving healing, which Psyche loves, keeping her topped up, as well as the increased damage. Also makes enemies attack reduce a little bit less, so they won't be doing as much damage. And then her other buff is from her passive. On the last passive over there, you get increased crit chance for self and allies. That is not flat, however, so it's not going to be a massive amount, but it is a little bit of crit nonetheless. So the main thing you'll be building on is just maxing out this buff first, and then her healing buff. And then with her passive, I believe this actually attaches to some of your characters, because I see when I use my Lyn and I use Daphne with her, all of the shots on Lyn will actually be getting another additional shot of like a Nemo damage. I can see it on top of all the damage numbers. So I think she kind of attaches this to the characters, or she shoots with them. I'm not sure exactly how this works, but she does add a little bit of damage to the team, especially if you add it to somebody like Lyn. However, I would mainly recommend using her with the Psyche team, where she'll also be giving the crit chance on Psyche because Psyche does have a little bit higher crit. And then she'll also be giving the healing and the damage and Nemo damage buff because that's what Psyche wants. And then looking at her introns, I would suggest picking up the first one over there is when you have the Emerald Fusion. I think that's the AoE heal. As active, self and allies gain 10% increased damage. So this would turn her into a decent support to use on everybody instead of only Psyche, because then she's giving healing, a little bit of crit, and she's also giving 10% flat damage, but nowhere near as good as Truffle. And then lastly, looking at her Demon Wedges, again, Uplift or Serenity. We're using Turbulent Cyclone on her because we mainly use her with our Psyche. So it just gives you skill duration, and then when a Nemo character's range weapon triggers a bonus effect, you grant 5.4% resolve to the user and nearby allies for 10 seconds. Now Resolve works really good on Psyche, so that's why we mainly use that on Psyche. So if you want to switch this out and use this on a different character, I would recommend dropping the Turbulent Cyclone and just picking up some more Wings Eternities there for the max sanity and the skill duration. And last, we just have the Squall Wildfire there for the increase in attack, because attack is going to be scaling her healing as well. And then the skill ranger there just to increase the range a little bit. But I would just go ahead and spec on some more Wings Eternities, and then maybe on this slot over here, just put one of the big range mods. It's like a 30% increased range is what I would do to go ahead and finish out her build. The weapon again on her would just be any duration weapon, since we'll be using the bow on our main support. So that's everything for the main supports and how their builds work and everything. And then two other supports I could mention is Randy. He would be a support for Electro team, and Hellfire would be a good support for a Pyro team. I haven't actually looked into how they fully build out and work. I've had a little look at them, and I see she will definitely give you some Pyro buffs, and then Randy is going to also be good on an Electro team. We'll cover those in a future date once we actually make a full Electro team in 1.1. We'll be getting a bunch of Electro characters, and then once we actually unlock Hellfire, we'll go ahead and talk about her in a Pyro team setup. So team comps, what I would suggest, pretty much just take Truffle and Filbert on any team. She is the strongest support in my opinion right now. I'll definitely use her on every team I play. And then for my Lyn team, I like to use the MC in Truffle, because the MC is giving that massive amount of weapon damage buff. And then for my Rebecca team, I like to take Tabethe over there for the increased skill damage for Rebecca using her jellyfish. And then Daphne, I pretty much use only with my Psyche team, so Daphne and Truffle. And then Margie, I don't really use her that much anymore, because I mainly just use Truffle always in every team, and it'll be between these three what I switch on, like which other characters I'm using at the time. That's going to be everything for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope that helped you guys out. If it did, please drop a like and a sub to the channel. Helps me out a ton, and I'll catch all you beautiful people in the next one. Augiesaint out.
Run free and dive into the sky. Hear the